Welcome to episode 81 of All the Horrible Things with Chris and Enan. Today we will be covering the Showtime series, which you can watch on Paramount Plus if you have Showtime attached. The Curse, starring the one and only Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie, and newly dubbed likeliest winner of the Oscar, Emma Stone. I think she just won a Golden Globe for Poor Things.
Yeah.
Did you see Poor Things, by the way?
Yet.
I saw it.
Yeah, I bet.
It's awesome. It's really great. Really, really fun.
I bet.
So we're talking about The Curse because it might not come off as a horror right off the bat, but if you are familiar with Nathan Fielder's and what he's done in the past, he is very subtle with his horror, but at the root of everything he does, I feel like he's the cringe king, right? He's the king of cringe to me. He's kind of picked up, I feel like, almost where like Sacha Baron Cohen has kind of taken a break from, you know? He's able to, in his initial show, Nathan For You, really kind of highlight ironies and hypocrisy, and is able to satirize stuff that we kind of take for granted as part of our daily lives. And this is his first like scripted experience. He's acted in a couple things, including that one that was about that The Room, that crappy movie, The Room, that they followed then the guy who made it with Franco or whatever. He's got a small part in that. He pops up every now and then. But this was his moment to shine. And we got to see him really flex his acting chops, which is interesting because he did seem like himself to a degree, right?
100%. This guy does such a great job of blurring that line of reality and satire. You know, it's Nathan For You was genius on Comedy Central. He also recently did a show on HBO Max called The Rehearsal. Brilliant. They all sort of feel like that same tone of it's not necessarily hidden camera, but it's like it's not hidden camera, it's not prank show, it's not necessarily narrative, but he does this amazing job of finding this new place in between all of these different genres, and it's like very original.
I completely agree. What I would call it is, you know, me being the fan of the parasocial, it's a paranarrative, right? It's not quite reality. It's not quite, you know, your 100% written show. Because I know this show, The Curse, was rooted in something that happened to him in reality. The whole show, if you're not familiar with it, you see this in the preview. He's cursed by this little girl that he offers $100 to for the cameras because they're shooting what they're initially calling Flipanthropy, which is like an HDTV pilot. They're trying to sell it in the first half of the series about taking homes, reduxing them, or actually they tear them down and then they build these environmentally friendly abodes in Española, New Mexico. Which are very appropriately designed to have completely mirrored exteriors. Could you live in a house like that?
No, I would hate it walking up to it every time. And then when they do like the walkthroughs with when they're trying to get the first reaction by the couples, no one likes it. It's always like, wait a minute, why is it so hot in here? Why is you can't have it?
It's like a thermos, Chris. Come on. It'll keep you anywhere between, what is it, like 80 and 62 or something. So you just got to live with whatever it is in that range.
Yeah.
But you're right. I don't want to. Every time you're walking into your house, you got to see yourself and stuff. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Pass.
It's kind of just crazy. The whole idea of these two thinking they're trying to help the environment and these families to help build community within this town, which is very HGTV right there. A lot of shows focus on rebuilding the town and putting the heart into it and giving community a better chance. However, what they're providing in this series is miserable. They're bringing what they're almost just doing it for themselves to make themselves feel better. It's that whole liberal guilt, which I think is the common theme throughout this series, aside from just misery. Yeah,
you have absolute. It's completely self-serving, and I'm sure you've heard the term those in glass houses shouldn't cast stones. Well, those in mirror houses shouldn't judge, and that's all they do is they judge people and think they know the way to make that person or society or the town of Española better. They have the prescription for what's ailing Native Americans who have been here forever, and they've been fine.
Right.
There's huge intercultural themes going on in it. But as you noted, this all revolves around Asher, Nathan Fielder's character, reneging on the $100. He goes back and he rips it from her after he tries to get a good moment on camera to really bolster his true self. But is it his true self if that's not who he really is? So again, you have this dualism between how people are when they're being filmed and how they are in reality. Of course, the little girl then curses him. We find out what the curse is later. But what I did want to mention is this did happen to him in real life. This is what spurred the whole idea of the show. When him and Benny Safdie got together and decided they want to work together. It was initially supposed to be just a half-hour comedy, ended up being an hour-long dramedy, 10 episodes long. It's a long, involved, intricate show. But I just think, again, you have something from reality inspiring this narrative. And, the meta layers with Fielder, I feel like, never end.
Tell me the story though that inspired this, that happened to Nathan Fielder. I'm not sure I'm familiar with this.
Okay, so it's very similar. Nathan, he was outside of a grocery store, I think along the same lines, and there was this old homeless person. It wasn't a little kid, homeless person who asked him for money as he's walking. He's like, "Sorry, I don't have any." And then the woman said, "I cursed you." He's not a very spiritual person apparently, but it's still like it hung with him. So he went into the store, he went to the ATM. And he got $20 and he came back and the woman thankfully was still there. He gave her the $20 and he says, "So the curse is lifted, right?" She says, "You're good." So he was fine. He got out of that. But of course, in this narrative version, when he goes back after the pressure of Whitney to actually, no, he initially does go back to break the 100 to give her a 20, right? But they're gone at that point.
He tries a couple different things. He goes to Dougie, his director of the series, to see if he's got cash. He's like, "No cash." Then he goes into the local Mexican restaurant and tries to go behind the counter. Guys, we don't have anything, larger than we can't break that. Then he has this incredibly awkward interaction with two guys who want to help him with the ATM. There's a trick to it, right? There's a trick to this specific machine. It doesn't just let you do the normal steps. Yeah. The guy comes up to Fielder's character, Asher, and says, "Well, what's your PIN?" And this, to me, was very Curb Your Enthusiasm as well. Yeah, there are some very great Larry David moments.
Yes, absolutely. He's kind of the neo Larry David in a lot of ways. But you're right.
Long story short, you need to be able to trust a stranger. And the guy is able to get him the cash, the smaller bills. He had to trust this man, and they're like, "We don't want your money." Like, it's a whole. He judged these two guys in the restaurant.
They're so offended, but it does boil down to how this has affected him so much that he's worried. Oh no, is this the beginning of the curse? Is there like maybe a scanner thing on these ATMs? People tell you to watch out because sometimes these cons will put something on there that makes it look like the actual swiper dealy, and then you end up getting all of your info stolen. So he didn't have anything to worry about. These guys seem like they're just around the block. This is such a small town. He could hunt them down if he wanted to anyways and be able to pinpoint it. But he's still just so... both of them are very narcissistic characters, right? They're both very self-consumed. So, of course, he immediately thinks this is going to have to do with the curse and me. The world, I'm the main character sort of thing. The world revolves around me. Which gets really interesting at the end. And I think in this cast, because we could talk an hour about every single one of these episodes, but for the sake of y'all, We are really going to focus on why this is a horror series, and then kind of focus a little bit more on the last episode, the finale that just aired last week, which is really kind of different. It's different than the rest of the show in a way. Certainly, the second half of it is very different. But in what ways do you feel like this is horror throughout?
At the start, this top layer, I'll just say the most obvious thing throughout every episode is the music. They made a choice to go with this really crazy drone tonal sound throughout the series. So they
very ethereal, ominous sounds.
So right out of the gate here, that they had decided, in the post process here, we could have put any music here, but we really want you to lean into like how unsettling, that might be the word for the whole show, is unsettling this is. So there's that theory right there. The other idea, someone being cursed, is a very old world thing that people really did believe in curses. I mean, this was something that almost every culture would use to blame all of their problems on. And we find that in this series, that Asher grasps onto this idea of the curse and it being real, that he is now using it almost like it's like a crutch why things are going wrong, and his relationship with his wife starts to, from the get-go, they're really, the cute HGTV on camera couple, but they've got their own problems. So you've got this curse plot line here that also makes it horror. Then there are a lot of just social commentary horror things about small town America, poverty, just there's certainly a whole bunch.
Just along those lines with the poverty, just witnessing how they manipulate and exploit others for entertainment purposes, and what that says about us even as the audience, because this ultimately is dominant, I would say, as a genre reality now. People, I feel like, are more invested in watching what they feel is real reflected upon them than actually existing themselves in the real world. And that's profoundly disturbing when you think about it, as it does bleed the horror and the humor, which I feel like even the best actual horror does, right? Because what's the crying, laughing dualism that it's dealing with, and specifically just like influencer culture and how degrading that is to us as a society. And then of course, as you noted, the gentrification and them being these white saviors, that can come in there and save the day. And then the horror of just that cringe-worthy awkwardness throughout as well. And to add to your the sound point, it's just like it gets to also everything seems like bright and sunny. It's New Mexico, but ultimately the atmosphere is just so unsettling because you don't know who the real version of all three of our main characters are. Whitney, Asher, and Dougie feel like they can flip on a dime. They're all Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde-esque in a way. And what makes it extra scary is they all have this Hyde part of them, but they're all trying to figure out what the other one is thinking. Mostly that's acute with the married couple of Asher and Whitney, but I feel like they're anticipating what is being thought and what will be done by the other person, adds to this sense of dread in us as the audience as well. And it really gets to the heart of how fragile any relationship really is if you have any misgivings or doubt or mistrust, right? How it could lead to catastrophe at any moment if you say the wrong thing, give the wrong look. That in itself is very scary. The way that it's so subtly just talking about how tender, we're all on tender hooks with each other in a way.
Yes. I'd really like to just talk about the relationships really quickly, because as it feels like Asher and Whitney have been together a long time, but they have not. They have
2 years maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say over a year. It feels like so quick. And now we have the opposite with Dougie and Asher, who have known each other since they were children.
Right.
And to me, it seemed like it was not a real friendship, more of like an acquaintance, because
I bet they were friends when they were younger, right? I think there's a good chance before Dougie becomes Dougie, as he has. I think they probably were buddies at one point, because I do feel like after their dinner, Dougie kind of changes. I almost feel like he has a little bit of a revelation, because at the moment, like, Dougie kind of starts realizing what he's doing, and that Nathan actually was his friend at one point, right? And he's exploiting the hell out of your dearest friend from his perspective when they were younger. That's when then Whitney almost becomes the Dougie. She then's the one that starts really pushing it with the exploitation, getting the Native American artist friend of hers, Tara, is it Tara or Kara? I can't remember. To say things she's not comfortable with saying, like, oh yeah, these houses that you guys are creating, they really are a work of art. And you can see after Whitney has manipulated her into saying crap like that, she feels like she's been gutted and hollowed herself. The way that the camera then like lingers on some of these moments where you just know this person is hating themselves or hating the person they just spoke to, the way that the manipulative cinematography, I guess is what you would call it, the way that it mimics what they do in reality show within the narrative, I think is superb.
Yeah, it's like a masterclass in just a breakdown of what these shows are really like. And you know it all just is completely different when the cameras go off. But that's what Dougie...
Yeah, and the way that they're fed lines.
Yes. I mean, let's go back really quickly just to the opening scene of the series, which is this really great push-in through... We're outside, we're pushing in on a window, and we're hearing the conversation of one of their main focus characters, the gentleman who...
Fernando.
What's his name? Yes,
Fernando.
Who is telling this heartbreaking story about not being able to find a job because of the way he looks, and he can't hold down work. And we've got his mother there, who is currently being treated for cancer, or she can't be treated for cancer because they don't have the money. And we see Asher and Whitney react, but Asher says a line and then immediately says, "Oh, you know what? Actually, I don't want to say that." And it's an immediate,
as he says Jesus, which I think it's very significant, because I don't feel like I'm qualified to talk too much about what's going on with the Jewish stuff going on in here, the Jewish theology that's in there. But that being said, I did read some stuff, and apparently the name Asher itself means like happy or a blessing, and then Siegel is in German, which is ironic given that he's Jewish, means seal. So like he's trying to put this fake happy seal on things, but what's very strange is Abshir, who is the father of the girl that curses him, who ends up taking over this house that they were trying to knock down and then revamp, the one in which he auctioned for, spent more than he was supposed to spend, and one could argue that house was cursed as well. He ends up, taking over the house. But Abshir's name means the same thing. Abshir and Asher, just two different language, but they both mean the same thing.
Did not know that. That's a great detail. It's just that opening scene. I think we really learn a lot about each character. I mean, Dougie wants to fake emotions. He wants to put fake tears, and they're saying no.
Can I put tears in your mom's eyes? While he's doing it, while he's asking, while he's doing it.
Something into like to make them red. Like, my gosh.
The menthol.
Yes. And we just get a really great opening as to each one of them, who they are. Asher is constantly saying the wrong thing. He wants it to be, oh, can we remove that? And then we learn that he also has an anger issue, and the way he acts when they're being interviewed by the local news story, he just loses it. It's so uncomfortable.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on behind the scenes in this show that I imagine is very comparable. I don't want to say every reality show's like that, but The story's being driven from the producers and directors, and the actors are trying to portray a different version of themselves. And that's really the nutshell of this series.
And at what point are you faking a self that you then lose yourself? And we can talk about more about that at the end, where all these characters end up. Do they actually lose who they ever were or ever thought they were, because now they have supplanted this artifice over them? I find that very interesting. That opening shot was great, because we do meet Fernando. We have sympathy for Fernando, but as the series goes on, we then learn a little bit more about Fernando, because they initially give him this job at this coffee shop that they're opening up in this little strip mall that they own. They own the strip mall, I guess. So they also lease it out to this jean company next door as well. So ultimately, they hire Fernando to be a barista at the coffee shop that's immediately shut down. So that in itself is fake. They show in the episode that they're giving him a job that doesn't exist. They feel bad about it enough that they then go back to Fernando and say, well, why don't you be security for this strip mall? And then at the end of episode 2 or 3, we see him like at night in the empty parking lot with his folding chair and a rifle.
Yeah.
I don't even know, is that illegal to just be like out there in front of his door with a rifle?
Well, he's the one who says, if we want to do this right, I have to be here during these hours. And it's not only the rifle, but we also learn that he likes to have a handgun on him as well, and it makes everyone uncomfortable. But especially Whitney, who then doesn't want to do it herself. She doesn't want to do the dirty work. She has the, I think the employee.
Her PA.
I thought it was
that poor PA of Whitney's going up to people on the street trying to but here's I listened to a couple Q&As. They actually, a lot of the people did street cast, which is so meta in itself. They would go to this town of Española, 20 minutes outside of Santa Fe, because obviously it's going to be 1,000 times cheaper there. They're even acknowledging the production of it is kind of mirroring the exploitation and the self-serving that the actual show does. In the Q&A, I highly suggest checking out the YouTube Q&A. Safdie does one for every 2 episodes, but then in the final 8 and 9, you have the whole cast there. Really, really insightful. If you like the show, go back and look at that. But, just the moral ambiguity that we're dealing with, especially when people start stealing from the jean store, right? And Fernando handles it like he probably should. This is a criminal act. He calls the cops. But Whitney's not having any of that. So she goes into the jean store and says, anytime somebody steals, put it on my credit card.
And what's crazy is that she has, in her mind, decided this was the best idea. And I mean, Fernando feels so betrayed, because he's betrayed because he was told they were going to do something about the crime here. And what Whitney decides to do by putting she's basically making it okay to steal and inviting people to come and steal.
Yeah, exactly. To get back to the moral ambiguity part that really is reflected by that is the show blurs the lines between good and evil there, you could argue. And while the Siegels face misfortunes, it's often a consequence of their own choices and manipulative behavior. And this leaves the audience unsure who to root for and creates a sense of moral complexity. It's just it's maybe too smart.
Right.
I was going to mention this before, but I worry about really intensely amazing shows like this getting a mass viewership and getting a season 2, which I guess is a possibility, Safdie says. But I recently read an article where David Chase, who did The Sopranos, has been pitching shows, and everything he's getting from producers these days is dumb it down. Dumb it down. We don't want complex shows like Sopranos or The Wire or Breaking Bad anymore. Sad. We are going to be appealing to the, common denominator, and we are not challenging people like this show expertly does. That being said, we can't refute the fact when we talked right before this, you're like, it was hard to watch.
It was hard to watch because, one, the episodes are long, not in a bad way, but in a almost, how do I phrase this, emotional, exhausting way. It takes a toll on you when you're watching so many missteps by these characters.
Right. It forces you to be an active player.
Yeah.
In a way. It absolutely can be draining. Watching with Mara, she hated it. At one point, I'm like, I'm 2 episodes in, I said, should I watch this without you? And she's like, you can.
That's the pre-like, go ahead, like, please do.
But I forced her to watch it all, and particularly in the final episode, she was squirming.
Yeah.
She was squirming, and I can't wait to talk more about that. Before we do, let's continue to talk a little bit more about why it is horror. And I think throughout the entirety of the series, you have this sense of dread and paranoia. And as it unfolds, there's this pervasive sense of the paranoia that hangs over the characters and us. And there's that constant uncertainty of what's going on. And as you noted, whether or not the curse is real or not, as really perfectly illustrated via, what is this character's name? Nala? I wonder if there's significance to the name Nala beyond, I immediately go to Lion King. But she says, yeah, I cursed you, but it was something really inane. I cursed that your chicken spaghetti wouldn't have the chicken. And of course, there's this big issue of he ordered pad thai with no chicken, which is straight out of Curb Your Enthusiasm before, without the supernatural element in it. There's an episode of Curb where he didn't get the shrimp. There's 2 shrimps? I should at least get 7 shrimps. So yeah, that is straight out of that. Yes. Oh, beyond that, when it comes to whether or not her curse is real, you then have the instance where he asks her to guess how many nails are in his hand, right? She guesses it like 3 times right, and then he picks up a whole handful. He doesn't even know how much is even in there, and he squeezes it because he's so worried this girl might have actually put a curse on me, that he's bleeding because he's squeezing the nails and he's impaling himself. And then you also, that's kind of like stigmata-y too. So there's this
However, there is a moment right after that where Nala then says sorry, and it's like that trying to keep us, guessing, is this real or not? Because then did she have a thought of him getting hurt, and then it happens? But then we see, I don't think it's much. There's a scene maybe the next day where she's in gym class climbing the rope.
Yes.
And
yes. Episode 7, Nala's in the gym class.
And we see her, which it's a really strange class of students here that it just seems like no one's really watching them.
No, they have a very inept gym teacher who, like all gym teachers, are really unhealthy, like a rather large gentleman.
But we have to figure out if this girl that she says is bullying her, if it's real also, because this girl compliments Nala. It's just so confusing because you want to be on Nala's side too. Like, yeah, those girls are being mean, but are they? And then Nala is in the wrong when she wants the girl to fall. So it's this really
right. I mean, we don't know that for sure. We can just see in her head what she's cursing. She's cursing her, hoping that she falls.
I think she says,
but she does
the word fall. Yeah.
Does she say? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I missed that. And she doesn't, and then she kind of plays the victim, goes up to the gym teacher.
It says, those girls are bullying me.
And says, she's been bullying me. And I don't love the way that the gym teacher handled it either way, if she had been or hadn't been. But he's just like, oh, well, just shake it off. Something along those
be strong type of a thing. Like, that's not helpful.
Right. Interestingly, though, at the end of that episode, we do come back to Nala at the playground outside, where we do see that girl get hurt. I think she breaks a finger or something. She's playing, and then Nala's like wondering, oh, is that what I did a couple hours ago? Finally coming through. I find it really interesting how we do follow Nala, and she's like the only character that's really not associated with the show itself, Flipantropy, which becomes Green Queen.
You're right.
I don't know. I don't really. I haven't quite figured out why we went there, other than maybe to continue keeping us in the dark on whether or not her curse is.
I also think there's this other element of us following Asher's character, as he grows. Like we see him try to, and it might be very self-serving that he's trying to help this family, but there are moments where he's like trying to play with the girls, and Is he at some point actually becoming a better person? And I think that's another layer of just questioning his character's growth throughout the series. Like, does he actually change? Because there are this other storyline of Whitney's character getting pregnant. And I just think there's this really interesting storyline here just about children in general. And I don't think Whitney actually wants a child. I think we've learned that she has had an abortion. They don't say when, or was it with Asher? That's
all I want to talk about at the very end.
Something that was in the back of my mind. He doesn't question it.
Yes.
But yeah, there's just...
Especially because we have kind of totally negated, we've buried the lead here, and the real curse happened before Nala. This poor man and his inverted penis, or micropene, whatever we're dealing with here. Talk about the biggest nightmare most young men could ever have is to be underrepresenting, right? So he is putting this fear that I think a lot of guys coming up are thinking about, right? And they full bore with it. We get to see that wiener a few times.
We do.
And it is like so sad. Like, it does immediately give you empathy for the guy, but it also then at the same time
explains
like
some things.
It fuels his rage and his passive aggressiveness and like
trying to be tough, right? Whitney calls it out later. He's constantly trying to like stand up for what's right, or he just doesn't like to get. I don't know. I don't want to say he's being bullied, but Dougie treats him like crap, and we learned that he was part of their pranks when he was a kid,
right? Because everyone knew as a kid that he had the small Johnson. So I wonder if Dougie took this job knowing how exploitable Nathan was and how he could potentially use something like that. And it's made pretty obvious, I think, even in the second episode, that Dougie's kind of creepery on Whitney.
Absolutely.
There's that creeper nature there,
throughout the entire series, I was expecting him to sleep with her, you know?
Yeah. And we don't know that didn't happen, to be honest. I'm not sure that it didn't. Broken Dreams is something I wanted to talk about really quick, and why this is kind of a horror and nightmarish. Highlights the dark side of the American dream, specifically, and how fame and fortune can lead to disillusionment and personal destruction, which adds a layer of horror as you see their lives just like slowly unravel.
Yeah. We also haven't talked about how terrible her parents are.
Oh my gosh.
Corbin Burnson plays her father, who also, to go back to the penis thing, pulls Asher aside to talk.
Pulls out his pecker.
Well, was what he also thinks it's helping the taste of the tomatoes, or the growth of the tomatoes. Wasn't it a tomato?
Ammonia kills plants. I don't know what he's thinking.
To me, it was like an animal instinct to pee on what you own. You know, like your territory, like marking your territory.
That's a good point. And significantly, his character and his wife have manipulated the area and the people. Kind of, what do you call that? It was scarring the earth. Scarring the earth. Maybe that's like his peeing, salting the earth. Because urine has a lot of sodium in it. So that kind of points to they've already kind of like ruined this whole area, Española, by buying up all the property and then charging exorbitant rates or whatever.
Made a lot of money.
And Whitney will never be able to escape that. You can't escape the sins of the father sort of thing that we see in horror all the time.
Right. And they've done so much damage. It is following Whitney around, even though she's in complete denial. Like, there's a really great shot later when she realizes that she's in the photos on Facebook of like the opening of this apartment. Like, she was there. She's trying to escape it, but like, you played a big part in this too. And you take the money from your parents. You think you're doing good with it, and you're just helping fulfill your lies and like paying your guilt, paying the artist the money, the $20,000, because you really just wanted to use her art in your homes, and then you create this fake job and throw money at it. It's absurd.
And fake friendship. I mean, and Whitney said, I do actually, for a while, think that she thinks that they are friends. She then really does this inappropriate act of buying her this caricature of an Indian statue from a mini golf course because she seems to be a little jealous of the relationship between Dougie and Kara, to the point where she essentially needs to intercede herself. Shows up uninvited with this horrific thing, then forces herself into the house, tries to get her to sign, finally does, right, during this. Gets her to sign as long as she's getting the 20,000 on top of it.
She creates that lie.
And then says, let's go play some basketball. Which itself could have associations with the Native American culture too. It just was like so fake.
Like they thought they were having fun.
Made you hate her that much more. That being said, Kara, she's a very complex character. She wasn't necessarily likable though, right? The fact that she likes Dougie is not necessarily something that you can like.
She's also majorly flawed, and there's that whole other level of performance art that she does. That's it's I don't even know, because I mean I don't know how to like really view performance art, and like I think a lot of people, that was supposed to be how we felt. But with the eating of the turkey in the teepee, it was a really interesting performance, and so confusing,
right? Like most of this show tends to be, it leaves you guessing, right? That's another in the unforeseen consequences that horror does. The characters' actions have disastrous consequences, highlighting the dangers of arrogance and their lack of self-awareness, which is so important to this.
That's huge.
And this sense of inevitability adds to the horror. Like this is, they can't escape their fate, sort of thing. They want to be something different, but they're always going to be brought back to who they are and be reminded this is who you are. I'm sorry, but you're not going to be the white savior when your parents have exploited these people already. You're essentially giving them back their own money.
And it's the fact that the money she's taking from her parents is the money that was taken from these people. It's a
less obvious means of it being horror is this loss of innocence that I think is particularly highlighted by Nala and her sister's character, because they're forced to kind of grow up real fast and realize what's going on in a way that they don't want to because of Asher and Whitney and their constant presence. And then that really awkward scene with Dougie in the bedroom, literally forcing her to
curse him,
not tell the truth, to say something he wants her to say because he's got the recorder on. He's the corrupter, you know? He has turned her from innocent to, you know, subject to monster, you know, knowing what the monster is.
He's the monster in a kid's bedroom, you know? Like, he is it's so inappropriate. It's
it's so awkward too, because you got Nathan kind of like enabling him too, saying here are these fake batteries as they like split up and go to the different rooms. And then poor Abshir, it's like he's trying to monitor Nala while Dougie's in the room, and then Asher, you know, Asher is sucked into Dougie's horrible ways. But that being said, how good is Asher if he is willing to be sucked into that? He's so desperate to please that it leads to his own downfall, or upfall, should I say. Is there any other aspects of horror before we start digging into the finale?
I just really quickly want to break down this whole bromance when they're out to eat. This is coming right after a scene where Dougie was trying really hard to make his friend look like a terrible person on video, that they're like, all right, let's go out and have a good time. They do this classic thing where they're the two white guys who know every lyric to the rap song.
That's right.
Dougie is completely rude to the server about the other beer. He's like, yeah, can I get this beer? She just went to their table. She looked at me
Yeah.
and like, drop everything you're doing and help me. It's just this whole other
Right.
privilege horror, you know, like people who are just so, they're monsters to people who they think aren't as good as them. And I think that was
yeah, they are the monsters. All three of them are
and something
super
else
villains.
really quick I want to talk about was Dougie's wife, because Dougie has peppered throughout this series the story about how his wife died and says that he was also cursed. Now, what did you make of that? Did you think he was just lying, or?
No, I think he killed his wife in a car accident that he was drunk.
No,
drunk driving, car accident.
He was completely responsible for that. I'm saying when he tells Asher that he was also cursed, do you think he's just glomming onto this idea like, oh yeah, I was cursed too, because there's no way I would have killed my wife?
Yes, I do think that. I think like all of them, they have to project. Projection is such a big part of this. He's going to glom on is a great way to put it. He can't let Asher have that. Even if it's a bad thing, he wants in on it. You know what I mean? He's got to have a taste of everything that's involved. But I do feel like when Asher does hit him back with, well, your wife's dead or whatever, implicating that it was him, I do feel like that's kind of where he changes a little bit.
Yes.
Dougie, maybe, because he's like blowing into his alcohol meter and barely makes it.
That was beyond inappropriate too, when he was out on that date. And he tells this girl, and she clearly does not want to get in the car with him. And he just told this story about how he killed his wife in a DUI, basically, scenario. And then he pretty much forces her verbally, like, come on. Like, his peer pressure is so inappropriate. He's literally putting people's lives at risk. And then he has this moment of guilt, like, oh, you know what? Halfway through the ride, you then decide, because it's this manipulative thing, like, oh, I did the right thing. I am a good guy. Right. You're like, no, you did the same thing. You did the same thing at your restaurant date with your friend. Said you were going to drink a Coke, and then caught the server and said, put rum in it. Like,
right,
you're a bad person.
Right.
And then after all that, he then curses his friend.
Yeah, he's irredeemable. And I think, like, even if I want to give him a little credit for at least having moments of revelation, of realizing who he really is, I think he's able to crush that down really quick. Because let's talk the end. Are you cool talking finale now? Okay, excellent. The only one thing I did want to mention before the finale was the grapist. What did you make of that scene where Whitney goes to this event that's hosted by a Native American architect that's artist rather, who's a big deal, and then she brings her camera crew and is kind of taking advantage of the moments, and then you have this really weird white dude come up to her, and
that was so uncomfortable.
She asks him, "What do you like to do?" And he says, "Rape," but then he says, "No, grape," and then she's a little weirded out, but like almost intrigued a little bit. And then he's able to lead her back into the bathroom where they shut out the cameraman for no more than 5-6 seconds, right? So nothing is probably going to, she probably shuts him down in there. What was up with the rapist,
I don't know,
though?
I think it might stem back to one of the most awkward sex scenes I've ever seen on video ever. But when Asher and her are making love, I'll say, I think this is episode 1, and they're not actually having sex. They are running through a scenario, an idea of another man, and I don't want to just jump to a conclusion here, but I do want to add in this whole other maybe terrible layer of Whitney, that she might be into that. Ugh.
Yes. Okay. I did read a little bit about this. I can't remember the name of it, but it's not cuckolding. It's something else where it's not wife sharing. something where you know you have a hot
Yeah.
wife, right? And you get your power over her by fantasizing about letting other dudes be with her. It's not the cuckolding situation where she would then be with him, but because of his own insecurities and his own desires to have any control, especially given what's going on downstairs, it's more because she hears him talking in the bathroom to himself, fantasizing of probably masturbating while he's doing it. The gentleman that they, not the gentleman, the guy who worked on the show with them, he was actually a guy who was interested in the house. You know, the guy I was talking about who said, "You are the one that narked on us," in the bowling alley.
Right.
And then he has this weird stand up because then after that incident where Asher tries to feel like a big man, and he kind of does tell, "No, I was the guy who narked, and you can call me a tool because tools get things done." And it's just like so ridiculous. So it's after that he goes back, and then I think he's having his personal moment in there, and he's imagining that guy with his wife.
You're right. It's really messed up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, as an audience viewer here, connect some dots of what might be going on sexually with them. Why would Whitney be okay to walk into an elevator with this man who just made the most inappropriate comment to her?
Right.
I just don't know. It's not healthy. I think that's at the core of it.
No.
We know that they have a very unhealthy sexual relationship between the two of them.
Right. And again, going in there with him leaves it up to open interpretation. We don't actually know what's going on. And that's part of the horror too. There's so much we don't know that's left up in the air, if you will. And it also kind of points to, okay, who is the father of that baby at the end? It could be Dougie. It's probably not the rapist, but I wouldn't put it past her when he's in the bathroom fantasizing about the guy bowling alley. Does she then like go and do what he wants him to do, and maybe that's the father? I just think there's a strong chance that it's not Asher's baby. And I think it's ironic because Asher's the one who wants the kid way more.
Yes.
And when you take into consideration how he wants to control his woman by letting other men sleep with her, it makes me scared. The real horror is if this baby does get born to both of them, because they're going to have a puppet. You know what I mean? What they want. All they want is to be able to control people. And then they would have this future monster.
Yes.
But let's talk about how we kind of like skip forward. She's now pregnant after episode 9 in the finale. She's converted to Judaism. Everything seems hunky-dory. The show has been picked up. It's been airing. Really funny opening scene where we have this Rachel Ray episode where she's got on the guest Vincent Pastore from Sopranos. Interesting enough. But isn't his character's name Big Pussy? Yeah. So, I mean, that's Nathan throughout the whole thing. He's like the big pussy of the show. And then, of course, they are like the second fiddle.
It's so uncomfortable. Like
in the background on the screen, trying to tell Rachel about their show while Vincent is just usurping the whole segment. Flirting with Rachel Ray on top of it. He's actually being natural. He's a good guest, whereas there they are, not present, right? Not in corporeal form. And again, like pointing to just like all of these themes and motifs throughout of the intangible and how ineffective it is if you're not actually there. And Vincent's able to steal their segment.
And I just think at the end of the day, it just wasn't worth it, right? That they did all this work, ups and downs. They got their show, and it wasn't what they wanted it to be, right? There's no real glory in it. You're still, just that fake celebrity. Yeah.
They're somebody for being themselves too, and they're awful, and they know it at this point. Okay, what do we have after that? We have
a really.
Should we just jump to the second half of it, or because before we wake up one morning, We have what seems like an idyllic situation. They're in bed. He's kind of like singing what I'm taking to be is a Jewish lullaby to the baby while he's putting some light on it, some like little flashlight toy. They wake up and then he's on the ceiling.
He's on the ceiling, and it's such a funny moment where she's like, "What is happening?" He's like, "Oh, what is happening?" And then he's terrified. Yeah, he's like, "I don't know what's happening," and neither do we. And it's this really crazy moment of maybe one of the craziest things I've ever seen in a TV show. You know,
I agree. I mean, I didn't see it come completely unexpected. That being said, I think a lot of people hated it. Mara, like, F this. This is done. I'm done with this. She was not having any of it. That being said, I want to suggest what this is based on, thanks to the subreddit of The Curse. If you're a fan of that, go check this out. But I think a lot of us growing up are familiar with Shel Silverstein, who wrote poems. And one of her books of poem was called Falling Up. Okay. And one of the poems within Falling Up is called Morgan's Curse. It's really short. If you don't mind, I'm going to recite it here. Morgan's Curse by Shel Silverstein. Following the trail on the old treasure map, I came to spot that said, "Dig right here." And 4 feet down, my spade struck wood just where the map had said a chest would appear. But carved in the side were written these words: "A curse upon he who disturbs this gold." Signed Morgan the Pirate, Scourge of the Seas. I read these words and my blood ran cold. So here I sit upon untold wealth, trying to figure which is worse. How much do I need this gold, and how much do I need this curse? That's it, right? This is the root. I mean, that combined with what actually happened to him in real life, you know, and just the whole idea. Shel Silverstein, we came up with him. This is one of those guys you're fed in elementary school to learn how to read. It's so perfectly fitting that there's no connection to his then leaving or, crawling out of the house as he does on the ceiling and then ending up floating to
space.
Goodness knows where. To space. I mean, he's dead. In theory, he's dead. Yeah. That's what makes me wonder if they do a second season, what do you do about that? I'm not really sure. Do you pretend like it was all a dream? Or you can't, though. I mean, I really don't necessarily think there should be a second season.
I don't
personally.
Think so.
I feel like it's
unless it's about different people.
A nice little. Yeah, it could be an anthology a la Fargo. Just finished the new season of Fargo, by the way, and that also has horrific elements. But yeah, we got this open-ended. What happens to Asher? He's probably dead, and when he's the one that wants the baby, and when she needs him the most, right, having the child, this is the point. She starts going into labor as he's trying to figure out why he's on the ceiling. This is when he would be needed the most, and he has this amazing speech at the end of episode 9 that says, "I will be there for you. I'll do anything for you." He's like crying. It's just like, it's a really, really hard scene to watch because this is where Nathan really revs up his acting chops. But then he's not able to.
He is plucked
because of forces unknown.
Scenario. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it is the most amazing way for a character not to be able to be somewhere. Physically. Yeah.
And then there's the additional irony of Moses then being the first person they call, who we've never even met in the first 9 episodes, but Moses is their doula, which I'm not exactly sure the role of it, but I know it's a Jewish, spiritual person who is there for you when you are giving birth, along those lines. I don't know. I should have looked that up entirely, but I definitely know that he is associated with Jewish theology, and he's there out of nowhere. And again, we got to remember that Whitney is not Jewish. Right, so the person that's there for her is this, person that wouldn't be there for her if she wasn't putting on something else, putting on a facade. Because I don't get the sense that she really is into the religion. Her parents even make the comment, "You're not actually Jewish. What are you doing there?" I really wish we had gotten more with their parents. By the way, they were a delight.
I agree. They make up so much sense of why she is the way she is.
But okay, so he tries to get out. The mullet tries to save him, and it seems like he's going to be carried up with Asher. So then he kind of like drags him to the tree where he's able to hold on to the tree. So now we got the last quarter of this hour 9-minute episodes of him in the tree. Firefighters have been called. Dougie's now there, thankfully. What would they do without Dougie, who then is able to use this moment again, get one of the firefighters to bring up a microphone. He's got his drone cooking on Nathan while he's clinging to this tree for dear life. And Nathan is telling them what's happening. If I let go, I am going to fly up. I need carabiners. I need a net.
All the tools. We got all the right tools.
Tools you haven't even heard of. Is this okay? They even have the big old pillow, like those big,
an inflatable
to catch you on the ground. Inflatable, yeah. Why on the world? First of all, they all lie to him, saying they're going to help the way he wants to be helped. But then you got the fire lady go up there with the chainsaw, and she's just going to cut off the limb of the tree so that he would potentially fall with it. How dangerous would that be if he fell with the limb? That doesn't make any sense at all that she would do that. And here's a question that we had discussed, whether or not does he let go of the tree branch, or the tree branch, from my perspective, is too heavy. He couldn't hold it. You know, if he's being pulled up, where's that force differentiation?
To me, this is something like he was forced to let go. It wasn't his decision. He didn't want to. I think the people who didn't believe him, because no one's believing that this is actually really happening. Like, yeah, sure, you're gonna fly away. Like we've, like some sort of like nutcase, you know, like here we go.
And everybody knows that he's part of this HGTV show because it's such a small town. So everybody there knows that this is that guy.
And they think it's like an effect, like a Hollywood effect.
That's the very end. Is like you got three neighbors we haven't seen before. Like, what's going on over here? Oh, you know, it's a guy from HGTV. Is part of the show. Oh, it's part of the show. Oh, okay. So good. So good. But I don't want to roll over Dougie on the ground while Nathan is doing this, because he continues to make it all about him, right? He's talking to the firefighter, and he's like, yeah, my dad was such a dick. I hated him so much. Not like Asher. Asher's a good guy up there, but yeah, he's not like my dad. You wouldn't like my dad. And this firefighter's like looking at him like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Why is this an appropriate thing? But then you know, to juxtapose that, Dougie's up there provoking Nathan by saying, hey, why do you want to run away from your kid? Why are you trying to escape here?
He's doing the thing that he always does. He's trying to get like good television out of this. And the only thing he can really think to do is just send that drone after him. Like when he starts flying away, like send the drone. Like the drone's gonna help somehow. No, it's just gonna document that this is happening.
Yeah, there was really one interesting comment that Dougie said. I'm trying to make more of it, but he's all like, when he is talking about his own dad and why he's running away, he's like, the mother has such a profound, direct connection with the child, but a father, I think he's trying to like justify his own father. The father has this abstract connection. Like, do they really have to be part of this thing's life? Right. You know, this kid's life, this being's life. So I think in the case of Dougie, I think he's ruined by his parents. Yes. You know, and interestingly, do we know anything about Asher's parents at all?
I don't think so. I'm not sure they're ever brought up. I don't think
so either. Not at all. His ex-girlfriend is brought up, who Dougie emphasized the fact that Asher had wanted to see her with another person, which probably is why they ended up not together anymore. And his awkward scene was like, I'm never telling you anything again. It's like they went back to the playground. Children. You know, it's like these two are Nala and the girl that she was hating on. I mean, I loved it, but I hated it at the same time, and I think that's exactly what they were going for. I will watch it again, but I'm going to need a break from it. Re-skimming it for the cast, there was so much I had forgotten was going on, including like the casino stuff where he's trying to get out of the expose on him that the news reporter is going to do, and how he's, you know, fake, and they're exploiting. And he tries to offer up some of this dirt on the casino, how they're enabling gamblers who are supposed to be told to leave. And then he gets wrapped up in it. It's like anytime you're trying to do something good, if it is self-serving, it's not going to end up good. And it's going to end up backfire.
And it will either ruin a relationship or just really end up just as a disaster. Yes.
It's a dark satire, man. Dark as it gets. Pitch satire with serious elements of horror.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see what Nathan does next, because he's doing stuff nobody else is doing. And I honestly wasn't aware of Benny Safdie until I'd seen Oppenheimer over the summer. And that's such a contrasting character to Dougie that I am curious about his other work. I know, have you seen any of the Safdie brothers movies?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that is a great one. Is he in that? I can't remember. Is he a character?
I know that he's an actor. I would bet you, if we go back, you'll find him in there. I think they also did a really good movie with Robert Pattinson before that. Yeah.
Ah, yes. Hard something, right?
Yeah.
I know the one you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it though. But I'm curious to go back and check those out now. I guess the Safdie brothers broke up.
They just broke up like 2 weeks ago. That they're no longer making films together. Very strange.
It's weird.
Yeah. That's art for you, man.
And the last thing I just want to mention, if you do watch these Q&As, it's really the only time I've seen Safdie be himself. And I got to say that I didn't know whether or not Dougie had bled into him or not, because there was times he felt very Dougie. And I know that he cannot be that because of what he did in Oppenheimer, which was so profoundly different. But I wonder if he was still kind of doing the show in these Q&As in his head in a weird way. I don't know. I encourage people to check out. I should probably watch other stuff where he's himself, but I couldn't help feeling like he's either doing something consciously or unconsciously, and I think that's what he wants us to think, whether or not he's doing it consciously.
He did an interview with Jimmy Fallon I haven't watched, but he decided to do the interview completely spray painted in silver, like one of the street performers, like the. So I'm sure he's just an interesting dude, like, likes to do funny bits and.
Yeah, and even early in the run, both Emma and Nathan were on Kimmel, and Nathan came in there and he had like essentially culturally appropriating hip hop culture. Again, would change like, you all think you know who I am, and you all think I can't act. Well, that's not me. Amazing. It was just, it's all meta. Yes. It's all meta with them. I mean, the last time he was on Kimmel, well, maybe not the last time, but the most significant time he was on Kimmel was when he was doing it for Nathan Fielder, where he built this elaborate story to tell Kimmel about having powder in his pocket of a suit that he accidentally got by matching luggage at the airport. And it's just like contrived. Is this existence contrived? I think is at the root of everything he asks. Is this all real? Is this fake? He's an existentialist horror comedian.
Genius.
But more power to him. That being said, if you'd like this cast, please subscribe,
share it,
and big up us, all your friends. We got YouTube, Spotify. We're on the Apple stuff too. Yeah.
We're everywhere.
There you go. Wonderful. But any final comments? All right. Well, then stay alive.